Chris Gunzz here with famed ring announcer, the great Lupe Contreras. Lupe, how's it going, man? You're in Oklahoma.
Well, man, how are you?
Pretty good. Tomorrow night, Lupe, middleweight championship fight. And some people, and a growing number of people, believe he's the best middleweight in the world. Triple G taking on Mac the Knife, Matthew Macklin. Macklin's getting his third shot at a championship. What do you think of the fight, Lupe?
You know what? I think it's a great fight. You have Golovkin, who basically at this point he's been given his toughest opponent to date, and I think the styles of the two fighters are going to make for a very entertaining fight. I was looking at some of the footage of Golovkin and Macklin, and I think they're tailor-made for a nice little fight tomorrow night out there in Connecticut.
Yeah. A lot of people think that Macklin deserved a decision that in his first championship fight against Felix Sturm in Germany. He didn't get the decision, but then he got a fight with Sergio Martinez, and after putting Sergio down, and I think it was round 7, he fought a great fight, but ended up getting stopped in the 11th. What are his chances on Saturday night against Triple G?
You know, I was looking at the footage of his fights, and he's a guy who fights very well. I think maybe his style is going to be it's going to help him and work against him at the same time. Mm-hmm. And when he fought Martinez was a guy who was more elusive. He was a guy who was basically trying to avoid going toe to toe with Macklin. Macklin throws a lot of punches. He's kind of a volume puncher. He works the body very well. Mm-hmm. But he's not really a guy who retreats too much. And from what I've seen of Golovkin, he's the kind of guy that if you stand there and trade with him, sooner or later one of those bombs is going to land. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately for Macklin, I think that could be his downfall. I mean, he certainly can outwork Golovkin because Golovkin doesn't really throw a lot of punches. Mm. But I think standing there and trading with him might be his downfall. I don't think he's a guy who it's really in his nature to retreat. He kind of has that Irish heart in him, and he's going to sit there and bang. And I think with Golovkin, that's probably the worst mistake you can make.
Yeah. And you're a great ring announcer, but I don't think you're a psychologist or psychiatrist at all. But having had those 2 losses, when he did get the shot at the title, how do you think mentally he's going to come into this championship fight against a bomber, a killer like Golovkin?
I think it's one of the things that can either work for you or against you. There's a lot of fighters, and I don't mean it in any form of disrespect whatsoever. I admire any guy who has the guts to get in the ring, but there's certain guys that just can't get past that particular level of opponent. You have guys who fight great and look fantastic against some of the lesser names, but when you get into with the top-notch, top-tier fighters in the sport, I don't know if it's the magnitude of the fight or just the level of your opponent that kind of works against you. Either he's going to learn from the experience that he's had in those 2 championship bouts, or he's going to think, well, maybe I just don't belong with these guys. And from what I've seen him, he certainly belongs in there with them. Like you said, the decision against Sturm was very controversial. He certainly gave Sergio Martinez everything he could handle, and Sergio's in everybody's top 10 pound-for-pound list. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely shown he's had the skills. I think at this point, he just has to decide, unfortunately in boxing, if you get 3 shots at a world title, you're very fortunate. Mm-hmm. And I think at this point, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's his last hurrah, but certainly it's towards the latter end of his opportunities. He's certainly not a household name as far as names are concerned. So I think it's up to this point to really show what he's got, instead of just being one of the the bridesmaid type fighters that put up a good fight but really don't have anything to show for it at the end of the night.
Yeah. And being a ring announcer, you get to see so many fights, and you get to be a professional observer, I guess. Do you see any weaknesses in Golovkin?
Well, from what I've seen thus far, certainly I'm not a boxing trainer, and I'm not, I don't consider myself an expert in any regard. I just think he's a guy that I would like to see him throw a little bit more punches. He's certainly somebody that tends to come forward. And I think when you are a power puncher and you have that reputation of being a guy with really heavy hands, mm-hmm. It's sort of like being a home run hitter. You kind of fall in love with your power, and you're always swinging for the fences. Mm-hmm. And there's certain guys that you're going to hit, and they're not all going to, wither under your punch. And I think sooner or later you come across that. We certainly saw a guy, in like when he fought, Gabriel Rosado in New York, who he was in there, and he was, I mean, if they would have let him continue with the fight, he would have taken every shot that Golovkin had to offer.
Yeah.
And like I said, Macklin throws a lot of punches. He counters well. He throws he throws punches in groups. Works the body well. And sooner or later, you're going to find one of these guys that can take your shot, and then what happens after that? And also, we haven't seen Golovkin go very deep into a fight. I think his to this point, I don't think he's gone any further than 8. And certainly Macklin has gone deep into some fights. He's gone the distance with Sturm, and obviously went deep into the latter rounds with Martinez. But I think perhaps maybe just not having that experience of being into the latter rounds of a fight, that might work against him. Or he could be a guy that his conditioning is just that good, and it doesn't affect him at all.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're not counting Macklin out, but you're leaning towards Golovkin. So I guess you already said that you expect Golovkin to win most likely. How do you see it happening? You see a decision? You see a knockout? How do you see it going down?
At this point, it would have to be by knockout. Like I said, Macklin certainly stands in there and he trades. And like I said before, I think that could be his downfall. He's not a guy that's going to run from Golovkin unless he's working on a particular strategy that's going to be a little bit more elusive, be a little bit more evasive. And like I said, in his last couple of championship fights, especially against Martinez, he was the guy that was chasing Martinez. Martinez was the guy that was more, although he stands in front of you, he's also more elusive. He certainly doesn't pack as big a punches as Golovkin. He's probably faster and a better boxer per se, but he doesn't pack the wallop that Golovkin has the reputation of holding. So I think I think that'll probably be the way it concludes. If I had to take an educated guess, I would say maybe a middle round stoppage on the part of Golovkin.
Yeah, sounds good. And strictly as a fan, Lupe, if Triple G wins decisively, if you were not the ring announcer and you were his manager, who would you like to see him in the ring with next?
Well, that's a good question. I think he's one of those guys that's probably hard to manage just because of the fact that although if you're a hardcore boxing fan, you know who he is, and he's kind of one of those high risk, low reward type of fighters. If I was one of the guys in his weight class, I don't know if it's a good idea to fight him now or fight him until I have to. He's obviously a big puncher. He's obviously a guy who is strong. I think he's with like most big punchers, if you develop a strategy and try to outbox him, you can probably succeed that way. But I mean, other than guys like Andre Ward or guys of that caliber, I don't see anybody else who can really avoid him for the entire fight. I think certainly a fight between him and a Chavez Jr. or someone of that category would be entertaining as well. I mean, Chavez is a big puncher as well. I think he doesn't get enough credit for how big and strong he is. And I think guys of that size, that would be entertaining to watch.
Yeah, definitely would.
I don't think it'll happen, but I think it's certainly entertaining to watch. And I think those guys probably will fight him when they have to. I don't think it's somebody that you necessarily want to put on your on your dance card coming up anytime soon.
No. And before we came on, you were worried about your phone service. You're out there in Oklahoma. Your phone was great. You're doing solo boxeo tomorrow. Tell me who's fighting tomorrow night.
We're doing solo boxeo. We did the weigh-in earlier. We have Roberto Marroquin, who everyone still says he's the guy that's given Guillermo Rigondeaux the best fight of his career. He had Rigondeaux in trouble on the undercard of the Chavez card. As a matter of fact, Chavez against Martinez.
Yeah.
He's had that loss and then one other loss prior to that, which were all very competitive, and I think he's still a guy that has a lot to offer in the sport. He's a puncher. He's got some beautiful boxing, and he's a big fan here or he has a big following here in Dallas. So I think he's a guy who still has something left in him. I mean, it's hard to imagine you're talking about a guy who's only in his early 20s and you're still saying that he has a lot of career left. But I think he's a guy who still has a lot to show. Like I said, when he lost to Rigondeaux, who is, I still think he's he should be on people's pound for pound list, even though he's not a household name. Yeah. If you've seen him fight, you saw what he did against Donaire, and you've seen what he's done against some of the other guys. And certainly to have a loss against somebody like him is there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
And so he'll be on the card tomorrow night. Jose Ramirez, the 2012 Olympian, will be on the card as well. We have Ivan Nájera out of San Antonio, who's an all-action fighter. His ring name is Bam Bam, just like Rio's. And he certainly has that similar style, very fan-pleasing style. And there's also a young kid by the name of Alex Saucedo out of Oklahoma City. You see the kid and you would think, wow, this kid doesn't look like a threat at all, but he knocks out guys way older than he is. I think he's either just turned 18 or he might be teetering on 17 going on 18. So a lot of young talent, and that's the great part about the Solo Boxeo shows is that you get to see the champions of tomorrow. When we first started off the show, you got to see, young Sergio Martinez, you saw young Miguel Cotto, young Antonio Margarito, you saw all those guys go through here. Yeah. That's a good way to see the stars of tomorrow today.
Every time you're announcing, it seems to come off effortlessly. It comes off perfect. What do you do to prepare for the night before, let's say? What do you do to prepare for the announcement?
Well, I don't really do a great deal. What I do is I prepare my cards. I talk to the fighters, find out any little details that they might have that they want mentioned. Basically, just converse with them, find out something that might be a little bit special that might get the crowd, excited about them fighting. Oftentimes, I'll find little sayings or little, if the city has a nickname, if it's, Galveston, I think that you're going to, instead of saying they're from Galveston, say, representing Geek Town, or, one of the big things that they have in Mexico is if, you're Nogales, you're not just, you don't say just de Nogales or from Nogales, you say puro Nogales. 100% pure Nogales or whatever it might be. So it really gets the crowd excited. Yeah. You try to figure out what the crowd says, how they refer to themselves, what they take pride in, and if you include it in the announcements or the presentation of the fighter, it tends to get them riled up, and it gets the crowd riled up, and everybody gets excited, and it usually, makes for when you have an excited fighter, you have a good fight. So that's what I try to bring to it.
Yeah, the great Lupe Contreras. Catch him on Solo Boxeo.